Hey guys, in this module we're going to be covering smart order routers and latency. Now, smart order routers first. Have you ever heard of that before? Probably not. Now, last module we covered ECNs. Let me ask you this. Have you selected your own ECNs when you went to buy stocks? Probably not. Most brokers, when you trade through them, they don't give you the option to select where you would want to buy your stocks on, right? We've said there's about 50 to 100 different ECNs that you can choose from. You know, maybe there's 20 very popular ones. They don't give you the options to choose. So what do they actually do for you? Because when you send an order, you don't select an ECN. How do they choose which ECN should they send your order on? They use something that they call a smart order router, SOR. And a smart order router is basically a piece of code with a series of if statements. If this, then send on that ECN. If this, send on that ECN. Else if this, send on that ECN, right? Now let me ask you this. How do you think the bank's smart order router or your broker's smart order router decides on which ECN to buy at? If you want to buy the stock at $10, where do you think they're going to select? How do you think they're going to select the ECN for you? Are they going to send your order to New York or INET or ARCA or BYX? Now we know that if they go to New York, if you get filled, they're going to get paid $2. Now with regular brokers and most brokers, okay, they're going to charge you a fixed commission regardless of on which ECN you bought or sold at. You get charged your fixed commission and that's it, right? Now, some brokers actually give you your ECN fee or your ECN charge. They're rarer than the others, right? So how do you think your regular broker is going to decide to route your ECN on? Would they route it on an ECN that pays them, or would they route it on an ECN like BYX that charges them? They're most probably going to send your order to the place that pays them the most. Now, there's an inherent problem in this, because what is your objective as an investor or trader? Your objective is to get your fill. You want to get executed. So if you want to buy at $10, you would probably not want to send your order on the one that pays your broker the most, because that one is the one that charges the aggressive sellers the most. And by charging them the most, that means you're not gonna get filled as fast as if your order was on an ECN that actually paid the remover of liquidity and gave and charged you or your broker, right? So if you could have chosen, you would most definitely choose the ECN that gave you the best fill rate possible. But your broker is most definitely going to choose the ECN that pays them the most amount of money. So that's a very big problem, right? Because they're going to want something completely different from what you want. Now, another problem with smart order routers is that they're extremely dumb, okay? And again, let me try and explain this in a better way, okay? So, I'll assume you guys already viewed the last module because you have to understand this module. So the last module, we've already talked about that there's a lot of different ECNs, okay? Now, different ECNs are not in the same geographical location, right? So you might send an order to buy a stock on INET. Well, INET might be, somewhere in New Jersey, up here. Well, then if you want to buy, and then you might have another ECN, let's say ARCA. Let's say ARCA's here. And then let's say here you have EJ. Or actually, let me put it further here. EJ's here. Excuse my writing. So EJ's here. Now, let's say you're in Montreal. And Montreal is here. MTL. If you want to buy, and let's say these places are all in New Jersey, okay? They're all close to each other. But even if they're close to each other, they're not that close. Like there's kilometers between them. One of them might be, further than another. if you want to buy shares and there's shares at $10, and let me do this example properly. So let's say on INET there's, and actually let's not put INET, let's put BATS because BATS exchange is one that we have now. Let's say on BATS there's 1,000 shares at $10. Let's say on ARCA, $10. And that, let's say on ARCA there's, let's say 500 shares. And then let's say on EDJ, or actually let me put EDJ and let me put BYX as well. Let's put 4 ECN. BYX. EDJ, there's also 500 shares at $10. And then on BYX, there's only 100 shares at $10. Okay? So you're here in Montreal. You want to sell some shares at $10. Okay? You want to sell. You tell your broker, I want to sell these shares. He's going to use his smart order router. His smart order router, since you're removing liquidity right now, right, is going to decide on the ECN that pays him the most. So your broker is going to want to send your order to the destination that pays him the most. And before even sending your order there, he's going to try to internally match it with another of his clients. So this is Montreal. Let's say you're trading with RBC, and so that's your broker. Your broker is based in Toronto. So when you send your order, it goes to Toronto. So they try to internally match it with another client. Okay, so they don't pay all these fees. If they can't internally match it, then they're going to decide on which location is, and let's actually put it like this. Let's put AJ here. And let's put the 500 here, and let's put BYX here, and put the 100 down here. Okay. Now, if they can't internally match it, they're gonna use their smart order router. Their smart order router is gonna say, okay, well, you know what? BYX is the one that pays me the most. Let's send the order to BYX. Now your order goes to BYX, and by the time it gets there, right? It gets there, and you might want to sell 1,000 shares. Okay. You just want to sell 1,000 shares and you send the market order. You just want to sell it. Okay? So your order gets here, and what happens? There's only 100 shares. So you get 100 shares. So then your smart order router says, okay, well, there's nobody left on BYX. What's the next one in line that gives me the most money or that I pay the least? Now the next one, if you look at the fee schedule in our other module, is EDJ. Okay? AJ is the next one because these two are going to charge me a lot. So let me go to this one. There's 500 shares here. The problem with that is this. There's high frequency traders. And high frequency traders are going to front run you very easily. Okay? This is something that I've worked on and I've seen a lot of people work on. We have a co-located server near the exchange where we can trade. And a lot of people have our co-located server is 1 millisecond away. So it's actually in the building next door. But some companies have their co-located servers in the basement of the ECN itself. So super closer, so way faster than us. So these high frequency traders are next to the exchange, right? Right here. And they have lines connecting them from one location to the other that are super fast. So if your smart order router buys all the shares here, or sells the 100 shares here, and then is on his way to EDJ, right? He's going to EDJ. He's going like this to EDJ because he wants to sell another 500 shares to this guy. Well, the high frequency trader that's here, he noticed that you sold. And he knows that if you sold here, you're going to go to this place because this place is the next place in line that has the best fee. So he's going to go super fast there, and he's going to sell before you sell. He's going to front run you. So then he takes all the shares here. And he might not take all of them. He might actually take 400 of them and just leave 100 for you. So by the time you get there, and again, you're super slow, right? By the time you get there, oh, there's only 100 shares. So you take those 100 shares. And then you still want 800, right? So the reason why he left 100 because he wanted to know if your order was still coming. So if the seller is still there, And if then you get those 100 shares, well, the high frequency trader is still here, and now he knows that next in line is going to be Arca and Bats. So then your smart order router decides to route next to Arca, but then by the time you get there, the high frequency trader is going to go there way faster than you, sell all the shares here. Then by the time you get here, there's nothing. Then he's going to go there, sell everything. And then by the time you get there, there's nothing here as well. And then your smart order router is going to have to say, okay, well, look, there's nobody at $10 anywhere anymore. And I was only able to get 200 shares of what I wanted. But now I have to go to the next price level at $9. And I got to actually sell at $9. So then you're going to go again to BYX because that's the cheapest one. And then when you go to BYX, the 800 shares are actually there. And you're actually able to sell at $9. But guess who you're selling to? To the high frequency trader who shorted just before you and now bought back from you at a lower price. So he made this money and you actually just lost it, right? So you got a worse price in a matter of milliseconds, right? This happens very quickly, but this is exactly what happens behind the scenes because you've used a smart order router that was dumb. And most smart order router by brokers and by big banks are extremely dumb in their code. So I've worked on a bunch of them. They're not that smart. It's a very basic code. If this by this, if this by that, very easy for high frequency traders to game. And when I'm talking about high frequency traders, if you read the book, so that's what was a mass book that sold. A lot of people read it, so I'll assume you have Flash Boys, where they're talking about an ECN company that wanted to go from one ECN to another, and they wanted to build a line, right? And that line, they wanted it to be as straight as possible. So it can go from one ECN, okay, to another ECN, but in a straight line. They didn't want it to zigzag because they wanted to be as fast as possible, okay? And they hired a company to build the line underground. And at one point, the construction company came to a mountain which was made of a granite or a rock that was extremely hard to drill through. So they said, okay, well, let's go around it. And the company was like, no, you have to go through it. Even though it cost thousands and thousands of dollars per meter, they wanted to go straight through the mountain. And the owners of the ECN would watch the construction workers as they're putting the line to make sure that it never zigzagged even by a bit, because they wanted to save nanosecond. And it cost hundreds of millions of dollars doing that. Now, they're not using lines anymore. They went on to using microwave technology, and now they're using lasers to transmit the information faster. So when your retail order is going, from here to here, it takes time, right? It's going to take, half a second to get to your, but when I mean half a second, that's 500 milliseconds, right? 1 second is equal to 1,000 milliseconds. And let's put this in perspective. If you send your order, it goes to Toronto, tries to get internally matched, hits their smart order router, decision making. Let's send it over here. That's a long time. Now, when we trade from here, we have a line that's only 20 milliseconds. Okay, so difference between 20 milliseconds and 500 milliseconds is big. Now we actually have a co-located server that's 1 millisecond next to the exchange. 1 millisecond versus 500 is a completely different world, right? Because then you can buy and sell something 50 times before somebody else just buys it once. So high frequency traders aren't even at 1 millisecond. Now they're in the nanoseconds, okay? So they're very fast. We can't compete with them. And I've tried competing with them, and it's impossible. It's another level of speed, okay? Because they're actually not 1 nanosecond, 1 millisecond. They're actually within the basement. So they're in nanosecond. And their communication lines are so fast that by the time you go from one ECN to the next, they can go to this one, come back, go here, come back, go here, go next to you, laugh at you, and go do this 100 other times. By the time you're just moving, like you're still here. right? So the speed difference is huge, okay? And by using smart order routers without knowing how to use them or where to route your orders, you're always getting gamed by a few cents every single time. And there's something big that came out about this with RBC actually, where one of the big traders was noticing that every time he wanted to buy shares, even though there was 50,000 shares on the offer, when he went to buy 10,000, he would only get a few hundred shares and the whole offer would disappear. So why would it disappear? Because high frequency traders saw his order coming and they front-runned him. First off, they canceled their orders. So if they were a seller, they canceled because they knew a buyer came in. And they bought the rest of the shares that were available. So as he buys, they buy in front of him and they sell it to him at a higher price. So they're just front-running him by cents every single time. And this adds up, right? Now, in that particular case, that guy from RBC actually had bought a high frequency firm to try and understand how they work, and he actually came up with his own ECN, and his ECN worked in a way like this, which is actually a pretty smart, not ECN, a smart order router. Which was pretty smart. So in his case, if he wanted to sell 1,000 shares, and there was 100, let me use another color. If there was 100, and let's put this 10. So let's repeat the experience. At $10, there was 100 here. And then at $10, there was 500. And then there was another 500 here at 10. And there was 1,000 at 10. So if he wanted to sell his 1,000 shares, well, he would send 3 different orders. One order to BYX for 100 shares. One order for AJ at 500 shares. And then one order for ARCA with the remaining, so 400 shares here. So he would split his order because yes, he wants to get the fee from here. Yes, he wants to go here next because that's the cheapest. And yes, he wants to go here, but he's going to send his order simultaneously. So his orders arrive all at the same time and he doesn't get front run. Now the problem with that is what? Is these are all at different locations. So his order might come here before it gets to here and before this one gets to here. So he actually thought of, well, let me account for the distance. And since this one is closest geographically to me, I'm going to wait a few milliseconds before sending this order. I'll send this order first because it's the furthest away. I'll send this order second. And lastly, I'll send this order so that in this way, they arrive simultaneously at all destinations at the same time. And I get executed on them at the same time and I get my fill. And he actually called this smart order router the Hammer, okay, which is a pretty funny name. So this is just to say that the smart order routers that you're using with your broker might not be serving your best interest. When you're being aggressive removing liquidity, you have to understand that if you send using their smart order router, you're going to get front run every single time. And if it's on an illiquid stock, you're going to get front run by a lot. So what should you do? You have to select your ECN. Don't do something as elaborate as this. But if you want to sell 1,000 shares, well, you know what? In this case, there's 1,000 shares on BATS. Send it to BATS. Get your full fill, even if you get charged a bit more. But avoid the risk of getting front run and not getting your price at all. Right? So send to the ECN that pays you the most or charges you the least, that has the full amount of shares that you want without having to do several ones. So select your ECN and don't just use a smart order router. If you're being passive, and you want to select the ECN that gets you filled the fastest and not necessarily the ECN that charges, not use their smart order router, which is not going to choose the ECN that's best for you, right? So there are some brokers that permit you to choose your ECNs, some that don't. We're going to cover this in one of the next modules. So this brings me to the concept of latency, right? Which I'll cover really quickly because we've talked about it. Latency is basically the amount of time that it takes from the moment you say you want to buy the stock to the moment you do. So from the moment you send your order to the moment that your order gets to the exchange and is executed. So previously, pre-1980s, the latency was about 2 minutes. So from the moment you send your order to the moment that your broker gets it to the exchange and for you to get executed could take about 2 minutes. In 1980, when New York Stock Exchange set up their automated quotation system, it would take about 20 seconds. So it got very faster. Now, in 2007, which is 10 years ago, it was at about 100 milliseconds, right? That's how much time it took in terms of latency for you to get executed an order that you send, right? So very fast. 2009, it was about 1 millisecond. So in 2 years, went from hundreds of milliseconds to 1 second, 1 millisecond. Nowadays, we're debating if it's within the very small nanoseconds or below nanoseconds, right? So it has to be something that's so incredibly slow that we actually don't know how fast it's going, honestly, at this point in time. It's too fast. Now people are coding on their hardware directly. They're using laser to transmit information, and that's what I'm talking about, high frequency trading. We, as a prop shop, we have access to a 1 millisecond latency, but again, pure HFT, they're less than nanoseconds, right? We don't even know at what speed they're going. So extremely fast. Now, you as a trader, why is it important to have latency? First, because you want to make your decision on the most recent information available, right? You don't want delayed information. Second, because there's a competitive advantage, right? The first person takes the profit. So if there's, a few shares to sell here, if you get there first and you get your shares, you're going to get them at that price. If you're a bit too slow, then you don't get that price. Also, because of the nature of how the markets work, the matching algorithms work, it's first come, first served. So if two people send an order at the same price, the person who came first is going to have priority. So you'd want to be as fast as you can, right? Minimizing your transaction cost, again, slippage. The slower you are, the slower your order gets there, the worse price you get most of the time. So you can minimize slippage in that way. Now, let me tell you, just so you really understand how high frequency trading works, right? Because this structure that I've talked about has built something that's very good for high frequency traders. Because high frequency traders want to make money without taking risk, right? That's their objective. We want to make money, even if it's a little amount of money, because we can repeat it and we can do it so often, but we don't want to take risk. So if you've remarked, some ECNs actually pay you to add liquidity, and some other ECNs charge you if you're removing liquidity. So you can actually do something that's called rebate trading, where you buy a stock on an ECN that pays you. So let's say on BATS, you buy 1,000 shares, you get $2. And then as soon as you buy them, right away, nanoseconds after, you go and you sell them on BYX at the same price, $10 still, 1,000 shares. And then BYX gives you $1.80, $1.50. So now you made, $2 and $1.50. You made $3.50 by buying a stock, selling it right away in the nanosecond, okay? At the same price. So you didn't buy, you didn't make or lose money, but you got paid in terms of ECN fees, right? So you made $3.50 without taking on any risk, okay? And without, making any actual P&L, right? It was just in commissions. Now, high frequency traders have a very low commission. They don't pay any commission, right? So they have no commission. So they're trying to rebate trade, get the rebates out of these ECNs. And in that way, they can do this repetitively throughout the day over a large number of stocks simultaneously and keep making those little profits left and right? So just to give you an idea of that, high frequency traders make an average profit per trade of $0.001, right? So 1/10 of a cent, 0.1 cent. So they got to make 10 trades to make a cent. They got to make 100 trades to make 10 cents. They got to make 1,000 trades to make $1, right? They got to make 10,000 trades to make $10 and 100,000 trades to make $100. 1,000,000 trades to make $1,000, right? So imagine this. These high frequency trading firms that have so many PhDs, programmers, they invest hundreds of millions of dollars, to for this equipment and these lines and this technology, and they gotta make 1,000 trades to make $1, or it's crazy, right? So you gotta imagine the amount of trades that they're doing. They're doing so much volume, buying and selling, buying and selling, buying and selling, that they are making hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue, easily. So they make a shitload of money by doing these small amounts of profits because they make so many of them, right? So that's really why latency is important. Again, this is why it's important for them, but for us, it does have an impact as well. You want to be as fast as you can. Obviously, it's not as important for you to be the fastest or as fast, because you gotta do strategies that are okay for the speed that you have. So if you have a low speed, you gotta do strategies that work for somebody who has low speed. Don't do a strategy where you're market making like this because you're not fast to compete with market makers, or don't do a strategy where you're doing rebate trading if you don't have a zero commission and the fast connection that they have. So take into account your position, the cards that you have, to develop a strategy that's going to work for you. And this is important to know about because you want to know how you're going to route your order, as we've spoke about, previously. Now, I've tried numerous amounts of time to compete with high frequency traders. I've built pure black boxes where I programmed all of it, put it near the exchange, okay? And my objective was to have no interaction with it. The computer does everything. And my strategy was to look at the bid and ask and try and buy at the bid when there was a lot of other people buying, and sell at the midpoint. So not even make a cent, I was trying to make half a cent, but a lot of times. And I co-located it. It was a 1 millisecond latency, and I still didn't make money with it. Why? Because it's so competitive. They're at another league. And the reason why it didn't work, it wasn't because I wasn't fast enough to send my orders. I was actually too slow to cancel my orders. So when the position didn't look good enough and I wanted to cancel my orders because I thought the bid would move, I would send my cancel requests, but before my cancel request would get there, I would get filled. So I was always getting filled like that. It didn't work and it didn't lose money. So I knew if I was a little bit faster, I would make money, but I couldn't get fast enough. And that's the thing with it. I know a lot of people who tried pure HFT, and I don't know anybody who has succeeded at it because it's so competitive. So it's just the worst idea to jump into high frequency trading because it's so hard that you're better off doing something lower frequency, okay, with bigger moves and less competition, and that's where you're going to be able to make money actually, right? This very, very short-term latency, extremely hard to do, but extremely important to know about and how they work, because it'll help you even if you're doing long-term trading or even if you're doing short to medium-term trading, because you'll know how to route your orders. And this is going to conclude this module, which was a long and hard module. So I'll hope to see you guys in the next one.